Hello everybody, this is Solar Tiger with a video of my 20-gallon aquarium, and I'm just going to talk about the plants I have in my tank. So this is my planted tank. It's a 20-gallon long and it's lit at the moment with two T5 24-watt fluorescent tubes. They are the Daylight 6500 Kelvin tubes. So I have a total of 48 watts of light, and we will just come to the tank. I'm just going to sit down now to make this easier. Okay, right, so here's my tank. It's fairly well planted, and my fish are 4 guppies and 1 spotted danio. That's all I got in the tank at the moment. So if we come to the substrate, it's just plain aquarium gravel. As you can see, just plain aquarium gravel, and I do have a light dusting of algae on it. But anyway, here's the plants I have. So in the corner here, this is Anacaris, and you can see it here. It's growing well. It's just in a pot with some filter sponge holding it in. So that's the Egeria densa or Anacaris. This is a fast growing stem plant. I cut this down a couple of days ago, but in a week it should be back up to the top of the tank. So that's that plant. It's fairly undemanding. As long as you have reasonably bright light, it's a fast growing plant. So moving on, this plant here is Cryptocorum, Whittier, I believe this is. Crypts prefer a lower light level, and they do need some nutrients in the substrate, so I have used some root tabs in the substrate. So crypts are fairly slowish growing. I've had this plant in here for a while and it's growing new leaves. So let's see. Here you can get red ones of these, reddy brown coloured ones. There are different varieties of this. So moving on, I have some regular Vallisneria, Jungle Val. That's the normal straight one, and you can see it growing there. It's nice and green. It does grow pretty tall, so you may want to grow that at the back of your tank. It spreads by runners. I don't know if you can see. You can't see too well, but the main plant is in the corner, and if I show you, you can't really see. There are some growing in the back. The runners spread round to the back. So that's the normal Vallisneria. And if I skip over here, I have some Corkscrew Val. So that's the Corkscrew Val. The leaves sort of twist like a corkscrew. So that's the plant over there. And it spreads in the same way. It has slightly wider leaves on that one. If I come back over here, at the back with the rounded leaves, is Hydrocottle or pennywort, and it grows well. It does like good light, and it grows a lot better when it has bright light. So it grows reasonably quickly, and it likes to grow across the surface of the water. It grows faster once it reaches the surface because it's obviously closer to your aquarium lights, and then it just grows across the surface, and you can propagate it by just cutting it and then sticking it in the substrate. So that's Hydrocottle or pennywort. I found mine a bit hard to get going, but I think that was due to me not having enough light. Then we come to the plant in here. This is Rotana, after doing some research. It's a fairly fine leaf plant, and as the plant grows towards the surface, the new growth turns pink with more light. So I think the stronger the light you have, the more pink the growth goes. I do have to keep pulling out algae out of mine. It's not too bad as long as I do it regularly. That's true of any fine leaf plant. It seems to be growing well, and when it gets to the top, I just trim it. And stick it back in the substrate to sort of grow more of it. Next to it, this plant here, see if I can focus on it a bit. This plant here with the white coloured veins, that is Hydrocottle polysperma, and there are different varieties of that, but that needs bright light. So the brighter light you have, the more pink the growth goes, and you can buy varieties that are much pinkier colour than this. It needs good light to make it grow pink. Next to it I have this plant here, which is Whittier, and I have it down here as well. So Whittier is a stem plant, and it has, the top of the leaves are green, but the bottom of the leaves are red. I don't know if you can see, the underside of the leaves are red, and when it grows to the top of the tank and brighter light, then the contrast is better. The tops are greener and the undersides are more red. But what I have done is, mine was right at the top of the tank before, and I've cut it down to let the light reach the bottom and new growth come up. So that's Whittier. There's different varieties of that as well. Some are really bright red, but to have the really bright red growth you need really strong light, and I don't have really strong light. So what else we have? We have a plant down here, and I'm not 100% sure what that is. It doesn't grow all that great, but I think that's probably down to the lighting. So that's that plant. This plant here is another form of hygrophila. I had some different ones, and this one is growing okay, but I think it needs strong light, so it's growing okay, that plant. Most plants will grow better with stronger light and good nutrients, so either using liquid fertilizers or root tablets. The plant behind it is Coppa, and it's a sort of tall plant with the roundish leaves, roundish type leaves. It's not here. Now I pruned the Whittier that was shading it, so it started to grow better. But I think also it would have grown better if I had planted the stems further apart rather than bunching them all together. That's a common mistake that people make, is they put a whole bunch in together and the light can't get to the leaves and your plant doesn't grow very good. So you're probably better off taking the individual stems and spacing them out so that they can get light better and then they grow better. So that's Coppa, another stem plant. So what else I got? In the front here, this red thing, or pink, bright pink thing, that's a red tiger lotus, and I only just bought that last week, and from my research it's It grows well in medium light. It's a red plant that can cope with lower light levels. Most red plants need lots of light, very bright light, if you want to grow red plants. So for red plants you need bright light and iron rich fertilizers normally. So what do you do with this? It grows from like a bulb and the leaves grow up. It's basically, this red tiger lotus is a form of water lily. And what you do is you let the leaves grow up to say about here, and then you cut them off to stop them reaching the water's surface, and you can get like the water lily leaves but underwater. And the trick here is to trim the stalks so that the plant stays about mid-level in your tank. Otherwise, if it grows to the surface, it will grow large lily pads and it will shade out all the other plants. So that's what I've read. It's slowish to get going, but once it gets going, is what I've read, and that it can spread a lot in a small tank. This is a 20-gallon tank, so that's what we have. The next plant I have here is water Wisteria. It's another form of hydro. This is Hydrophylla deformis, and you can see different leaves on it. The new leaves are this shape, and the older leaves have the frilly patterning. And from what I found with this is it's fairly quick growing once it gets going. And the books say it needs bright light, but people say it will grow with not so bright light. Bright light makes it grow faster, and I found that it grows well. So it's a stem plant, and basically you let it grow and then you can just cut bits off and stick it in the substrate and it grows into more plants. You can see, or you might be able to see, you can't really see well here, but it grows roots from where you cut the stems, and that's how you can increase your stock of it. It's a fast grower, so it helps to absorb the nutrients out of the water to help control algae. So at the back we have Java Fern. This is the regular Java Fern. There are all different varieties of Java Fern. Some have very narrow leaves, some have frilly leaves. They're all different types. But with Java Fern, you do not plant it into the substrate, you tie it onto a piece of bogwood or a rock, and it grows over the rock and attaches itself to it. So it will survive and grow very slowly in dim light, but the brighter the light you have, the faster it grows. It spreads by making small plantlets at the end of the leaves. You probably can't see here, but there's a very little small plantlet at the edge of the leaves here, and you let it grow a bit and then you cut it off and you treat that as a new plant. So that's Java Fern. What else we got? I also have in the corner over here, these are Amazon swords. Now Amazon swords need a nutrient rich substrate. I have just plain gravel, so I've stuck a few root tabs in the substrate. As these are heavy root feeders, if you don't have the right amount of nutrients in the substrate, then you get holes in the leaves, like I have here. And Amazon sword, once it gets holes in the leaves, the plant does not repair it. So if the damage gets too great, you cut the leaves off and then the plant grows new leaves. So to keep the plant leaves green, you need to use an iron rich fertilizer. Now I have stuck some root tabs in here a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going to see what happens. So Amazon swords can grow very large. The leaves can grow up to 20 inches plus, so they can get pretty big, and they can be used as a focal point. So, but I'm still learning with plants. I am changing my lights. I am buying some LED light strips to try and increase the brightness in my tank, because plants will grow better with more light. Most plants like bright light. The brighter the light, the faster they grow, as long as you have sufficient nutrients in the water and in the substrate. So the thing is though, you want to have a balance between the light, the nutrients, the amount of CO2 in the water, and the nutrients in the substrate. If you have too much nutrients and not enough plants, then you will get an algae outbreak, and it can be a pain. Algae can come in different forms. There is the green hair type stuff, green hair algae, and if you have that in your plants, it's usually because you've either got too much light or too much nutrients in the water. So you need to do water changes and maybe alter the light level and the light duration, or you need to put in more plants to absorb the nutrients. If you have the brown black type of algae, there's some here on the leaves, it's the sort of tufts that you see. That usually indicates that there's a lack of CO2 in your water, and that can be remedied by either using a pressurized CO2 system, which is a bit expensive, it's out of my bracket. So what I normally do is I use a liquid carbon, and you add that to the water at the rate of 1 ml per 50 litres for a planted tank. Sorry about the coughing. If you have a heavily planted tank, then you can increase that to 2 ml per 50 litres per day. So add that every day, and you add the liquid fertilizer once or twice a week, following the instructions, and that's how that goes. You alter the ratios to find something that works for you. Sorry. The idea is to get the amount of light, CO2 and nutrients at a balance that makes your plants grow well, but the algae not to grow. So it's a bit of a balancing game, and you'll learn by trial and error what works and what does not. So this is my tank. The substrate is just plain gravel, although if you want a planted tank, then you should use some sort of plant substrate, something like fluorite or eco-complete, or some aquarium potting soil. There's all different ones on the market, but they have lots of nutrients and they feed your plants for long periods, as most plants get their nutrients from the substrate rather than from the water, and aquarium gravel has no nutrients in it. That's why I'm using the root tabs. So and that's just what I have in my tank plant wise. This is what you call a planted tank, but not a really heavily planted tank. So I'm also getting some dwarf swords to go in the front as well, and they should be coming this week somewhere. Sorry about the coughing. So I'm going to be changing my lights to LED light strips. I'm buying some of the 7020 light strips that are 50 centimeters long and have 36 LED chips in. They are rated to put out 1440 lumens per light strip, and I'm having 4, and that will hopefully boost the light on my tank. I would ideally like to actually replace the fluorescent tubes, because on my windowsill behind I have the light starter unit, and it's a bit bulky, and it also works at mains voltages. So the light strips that I'm getting work at 12 volts, so that's the low voltage and it's safer around water. So that's why I'm going with that. So it's a bit of an experiment. So this is my planted tank. I have 4 guppies in it at the moment, and my spotted danio. The filter I have is a Val U3. I took the carbon pad out because it can soak up the plant nutrients that I'm trying to put in. And at the back is a Val 2 filter. So I've got 2 filters on the tank. There's a 100 watt heater in the back, and at the moment I have 48 watts of light. So this is my aquarium setup. I will be changing the lights soon, and I will produce another video then. So if you like my video, please comment down below and click subscribe. And until next time, this is Solar Tiger saying thank you for watching. Thank you.